Good Monday morning, everybody. It is Easter Monday, so thank you so much for joining us if you are here. This is sort of a day off for us, so I'm hoping that more of you can catch us this morning as we go live. Hope you all had a wonderful long weekend. I have some thank yous I want to get through just before we get started today. Shell had a super a membership milestone there at the beginning of the stream before we even got going. She said she usually saves all her milestones up for the end of the month and then forgets about them, so she's turning over a new leaf. So thank you, Shell. I'm glad you're here. Deanna, happy birthday, Deanna. It's Deanna's birthday today. She also had a membership milestone and she gifted 5 memberships. So spreading a little bit of that love around. Thank you so much. The chat has been scrolling rather quickly, so I'm unable to see who won them, but congratulations to everybody who won a membership. Thank you to Deanna, the birthday girl, also a gifting ninja this morning. So welcome. Thank you all for being here. Let's talk about what we're going to make today. It's spring. I literally could not be more excited about the fact that it's spring. I was looking at just sort of various spring stuff kind of coming up all around, I guess, the Northern Hemisphere. And I think the cherry blossoms are out in some places in BC, which is a little early than normal. But it got me thinking about pretty cherry blossom flowers, and I was inspired to stitch up a hairband that's cherry blossom inspired. So I made this. I thought we would do this together today. So this is a brand new pattern. This is the results of my Easter weekend. There is a pattern for this newly minted. It is up in our Etsy shop, and I want to just take a moment to say thank you to everybody who's popped in this weekend. It's our shop's anniversary sale. It runs from Friday through to the end of today. Everything's 20% off. It is the second biggest sale we do every year. It's hard to believe it's been, I think this is our 11th shop anniversary? 10th?
Yes.
11th? Yeah.
11th.
So everything in the shop is 20% off, including our bucket hat pattern from Friday. That one is very excitedly doing well. Jennifer, thank you. And our brand new hairband pattern. That is also on sale today. So please feel free to pop in and pick up a pattern or two or a few. It's a good time to pick up a few things if you've had a few in your cart. If you shop like me, do you guys do that? Kind of go to Etsy, put stuff in your cart, and then like leave and then come back a little later and pick up a few things. I love to do that. I love to shop and put stuff in my cart. And then I get distracted or I get called away and I don't finish my shopping. Anyway, I've got a nice cup of coffee. I've got a little bit of cotton yarn here. Joanne, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. You need about 50 to 60 yards of a size 4 medium weight cotton. I'm using Lion Brand mercerized 24/7 cotton for this. I mentioned on Friday that it is my favorite cotton to use for wearables. This isn't a sponsored live stream. I just absolutely love this stuff. So I choose the 24/7 cotton for my wearables now because it doesn't pill. It's nice and smooth. It's got a little bit of a sheen to it. I really like the size and the sort of the gauge that comes out of it. So my suggestion is that, but any 24 or any size 4 medium weight cotton will do for the headband. So any one you like, but I'm using 24/7 cotton. Scissors, yarn needle. Mr. InStitches is dinging the bell. Is there something going on?
We had a gifted membership from Lucy.
Oh my gosh, Lucy! Thank you so much, Lucy. Lucy has popped in and gifted a membership. Let me see here. Thrifty Crocheter has won it. Congratulations, Thrifty. Welcome back to the family. Thank you so much, Lucy. Good catch, Mr. InStitches. I have my eyes trained on the project. A G6 hook. So 4.25 or 4.5 millimeter. Any hook in that range is fine. This one is a G6. That's what I'm using today. And I'm going to explain how to make it for kids, tweens, teens, adults with smaller heads like myself, larger heads as well. It is a headband that ties, so there's obviously a lot of flexibility to this pattern. And essentially all you're doing is removing one of the flowers for a child. This is, you have, so 8 flowers for a child, 9 for an adult, 10 for a larger adult. Tina, thank you for picking up a pattern. You're going to want some beads. So let's talk about the beads. I found it's fun to crochet around the beads. So these beads are actually built right into the headband itself. So there's no sewing if you do it this way. And I know a lot of you are like, meh, sewing. So if you have, these are those typical pony beads. They're plastic. They're like a 6x9mm bead. Rounded plastic, your typical pony beads. So you can use any beads you want, but you need a bead with a hole large enough that it can slide over top of the yarn, because you need to thread all of your beads onto your yarn before you get going. So 8 beads for a child size, 9 for a headband that fits in a regular adult, tween, or a teen, 10 if you want to make a bigger one because you have a lot more hair or maybe a bigger head. And that is how they look when they are crocheted directly into the project. So we preload our beads onto our yarn, which I'll show you here in a second, and then we move up each bead as we need it and crochet around it. And I recommend this technique, especially if you've never done it before. It's really neat. It's a lot of fun. There's no sewing required, but if you have beads that just won't fit over your yarn, or you want to use buttons or gemstones or little rosettes or something else like a little decor, you don't have to do any pre-beading. You can just make the headband and then go in later and add little things to the middle of each flower if you want to. So that is the decorative option here for today's thing. I've got 9 beads. So because I'm going with the whole cherry blossom concept, and I will say, this is a little flower headband, so I think really this would look adorable in any color, but I'm going with the whole cherry blossom feel today. I think a nice light pink, this is 24/7 cotton pink, that's the name of it. Pink, white, rose, an even lighter pink, like a pastel pink, anything in that shade, white, anything between white and like a nice rich pink, like a bubblegum pink like this, is fine for the whole cherry blossom concept. But it's a flower. Flowers come in every color, so if you want to make it any color you want, no problem. For the cherry blossom look though, I recommend either red or purple beads or buttons for the middle. I'm going to make one today using the red beads because I feel like the center of a pink cherry blossom is almost kind of a red look. But I used purple here and I really like that too. But again, if you're making it a different color, use beads of any color you like. Tina, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. All right, darlings, let's get going. I will explain sizing as we go. It is super simple. It is just a very small change to the stitch count and the bead count for children, the middle section, tweens, teens, adults, and then the larger adult option. Again, you need 8 beads for children, 9 beads for the middle size, 10 beads if you're making the larger version of this. Hook, needle, scissors, around 60 yards of yarn. I'm using a G6 hook, and let's get started. So I'm just going to put this off to the side here. I just think it's so darn pretty. And I'll get rid of my scissors, and I'm going to keep my beads out because we are going to pre-thread our beads. Hello, Marie. Thank you so much for picking up a pattern. Okay, here we go. So I've got 9 beads for 9 flowers, and I'm going to preload them onto my yarn. Another thing I like about the 24/7 cotton is because it's like tightly spun, and I don't know if you can see that, but if you have it at home, you know what I'm talking about. All those little threads are like woven together as opposed to just spun, so it doesn't really unwind that much, and it's really easy to thread beads onto. So another reason it's a good option for this pattern. So I'm just gonna get all of my beads threaded onto the yarn before we get going. And we're going to build this whole thing in one go. So there is no attaching the whole headband from ties to flowers to beading. It's all done in a single go. There is only, you start with a slip knot and you finish with your last slip stitch, and you have 2 little ends to tie in or to weave in. So it is just one long go. It is kind of cool. All right, so you get all your beads onto your yarn. I'm just going to sort of shove them down a little bit and have a sip of my coffee. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Alfreda, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. Ding, ding is right. All right, once you've got all of your beads sort of threaded onto your yarn. For some reason, I can't think of the word yarn or thread today. And it wasn't that amazing of a weekend, so I don't know why. All right, we are going to take our yarn. We're going to start with a slip knot, and we're going to make our tie number 1 first. So you don't have to think about your beads for now. You just let them sit there on your yarn. We're going to chain 51. It doesn't matter whether you're making it for kids, adults, or adults large. We are making the ties. If you feel you are going to need longer ties, so just to give you some perspective, this is a tie. That's what your 51 chains will get you. That is roughly 30 centimeters or 12 inches. If you feel you want longer ties, you can chain 61 or 71. Just make sure you do the same thing for the second tie. If you think that's a little too long because you only want to tie a little knot, it's for like a little head or something, then you can chain 41. But I wouldn't go any less than that just because you do want enough to be able to tie at least a knot with. So that's what 51 chains will get you in terms of a tie. So that's what I'm going to do, 51. And it's good, like I said, you can do that for all sizes unless you want to make custom adjustments to that. Jessica, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. Hello, Katie. Katie is in the chat. Katie's been a member for 42 months. Thank you, Katie. Katie with a membership milestone says, hello, hello. The chevron blanket's almost 3 feet long now. Wow, that's fantastic. That's definitely long enough to cover your legs. Oh yeah, a bookmark. Terry, that's a great idea. You could do this in crochet thread. And it would be much smaller and you wouldn't need the long ties and the thread would be a lot flatter. And you could skip the beads entirely if you wanted to, or just use very small little seed beads, and that would be a very pretty bookmark. Great idea. I like that. All right, let's make sure I don't count past 51. Yep, I've done way too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I went way past what I needed. There we go. So 51 chains. Look at me getting carried away. And this is just tie number 1, so it's simple slip stitch. You're going to skip the first chain from your hook, find the second chain and slip stitch into it, and slip stitch in each chain all the way back to your original slip knot. And just take it easy. You don't want to do this too tight or too loose. Hello, Catherine. Thank you so much for picking up some patterns. Thank you, thank you. Our anniversary sale is on for the rest of today in the Etsy shop. And thank you so much to everybody who's popped in over the weekend and picked up some patterns. The bucket hat pattern is in the shop, as is this brand new hairband pattern, and they are both included in the sale. Some people were asking earlier today, so I just want to reiterate that. Thank you, thank you. And we have not engaged our beads yet. So as you're crocheting your tie, just sort of slowly slide your beads back along the yarn. We will use them in a moment, but we don't need them just yet. So they can just sort of continue to sit there on the yarn as we create tie number 1. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have enough yarn here. I think that 60 yards is probably a slight overestimate, but I wanted to make sure that we have enough yarn. It's always better to have too much yarn than not enough. Hello, Melissa. Melissa sneaking into the chat like a ninja with a gifted membership. Thank you so much, Melissa. And congratulations, Holly. Holly has won it. Welcome to the family. Thank you, Melissa. If you are just landing, welcome. We are making the flower headband, the cherry blossom headband that is sitting on the work table in front of me. We have just completed tie number 1, so chain 51, slip stitch into the second chain from the hook and in each chain all the way back. That is tie number 1. We are not cutting our yarn. The entire hairband is made in one go. I'm using a G6 or a 4mm hook, but 4mm, 4.25mm, or 4.5mm. Anything in that range is just fine for this project, and that is fine whether you're making it for a kid, an adult, or a large adult. What was that, sweetie? Hook size? 4.4mm, 4.25mm, or 4.5mm, also known as a G6, or a 7. It depends on the manufacturer of your hooks, but anything in that size range is fine for whichever side you're making. All ties are the same. You can make them longer if you feel you need them longer by crocheting maybe 61 chains or 71 chains to start. If you want to make them shorter, maybe 41 chains. Just make sure you make tie number 2 the same. I've done 51 chains. This works out to be about 30 centimeters or 12 inches for the tie, and I feel like that's enough to tie it behind my head. Okay, here we go. We are going to start our foundation chain row for the actual flower headband now, and we will be working in our beads as we go. So just to quickly reiterate, if you're going to crochet with the beads, you need beads that you can fit onto your yarn. You need to preload your beads onto your yarn. You need 8 beads for a child, 9 for an adult or a teen tween, 10 for a larger adult. We are going to slowly move them up and use them as we need them. Here we go. Crocus, hello. Crocus has been a member for 14 months with a membership milestone. Says, love this headband. Great way to start April. I agree. I agree. Cherry blossoms, eh? It makes you think like you're outside and there's a nice smell of sweet blossoms in the wind, but this way there's no like allergic reaction to it. Louise, thank you for picking up a pattern. Thank you, thank you. All right, everybody, here we go. So the pattern is the same for children and adults large, but you will just have one less bead for children. So 8 beads for children, 9 beads for regular adults, and 10 beads for larger adults. So here we go. We are going to start by chaining 3. So chain 3, that begins our hairband foundation. Let's move up our first bead. So crocheting around a bead is, it's fine. It just takes a little bit of getting used to because there's something in the way of your hook. So get the bead as close as you can to your hook, and then give yourself just an itty bitty little bit of slack. Grab your yarn, pretend that bead isn't there, and chain. So now your bead is chained into your work. There is the yarn runs through the bead, and the 2 loops of the chain stitch are on top of or outside of the bead, and then the bottom loop of the chain stitch is what's running right through the bead. So everybody see that? I'm going to do this obviously several more times. I just love this. Okay, so that's bead number 1. Now we chain 5. So in between beads, there will be 5 chains. So you chain around a bead, chain 5, chain around a bead, chain 5, and you keep doing that until you run out of beads. So I've chained 5. I'm going to move my next bead up next to my hook. I get it as close as I can, and then I just chain as normal, ignoring the bead completely. And that pretty little chain stitch goes plunk and lands on top of the bead. So you can see the yarn running through the bead, and the 2 chains, the 2 main parts, the 2 main loops of the chain stitch run directly over top of the bead. So it looks like this. And then you chain 5 and you do it again. Chain 5, move up a bead, get it close, and then pretend it's not there and chain as normal. And that little chain stitch arrives on top of the bead, and the bead is neatly tucked into your foundation chain. Chain 5 and repeat. Now I'm going to have 9 beads in total. The children's size will have 8 beads in total. So once you get to the end of your last bead, just pause. So there's my last bead. I'm just going to chain around it. I'm going to pause and make sure I've got all 9 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So 8 beads for children, 9 for tweens, teens, adults, regular, and 10 for adults large. So once you've chained around your last bead, we're all going to pause for a second because I heard the bell. Katrina. Hello, Katrina. Katrina's been a member for 11 months. Thank you. With a membership milestone. Katrina's just popping in to say hello. Hello, Katrina. All right, once you've put your last bead in, you've chained around the last bead, you are just going to chain 3. So the whole foundation chain after the tie started with 3 chains, then we started with our beads. There's 5 chains in between each bead. At the end of your last bead, you chain around your last bead, chain 3 more, whether you're making it for kids, adults large, doesn't matter, and that's it. So total chain count, and this is again after the tie, so we're not including the tie anymore, we're just talking about the foundation chain for the actual hairband, the flowers. Children have a total chain count of 49 chains and 8 beads. Teens, adults, small, medium, like me, you have 55 chains and a total of 9 beads. And if you're making it large, 61 chains in total, 10 beads. I heard the ding ding. Mr. InStitches, what is going on? Mr. InStitches is gifting memberships. Thank you, sweetheart. Congratulations to Crazy Chain, BJ, Carmen, Kim, Alma. Congratulations, you guys. Thank you, Mr. InStitches. Mr. InStitches throwing around some gifts here in the memberships. I like that you rang the bell for yourself.
I have to.
It's a good point. I might not hear it. Okay. We've got our foundation chains made. We've got all of our beads engaged. And just to remind you, if you are not crocheting, if you're not including beads in this, then you still have the same number of chains. So just because you are not adding in a bead, you would just have chained normally where I chained around a bead. So if you are not using beads, you should still have 49 chains for child, 55 chains for the medium size, or 61 chains for adult large. And that is the same whether you're using beads or not. We are not making tie number 2 yet. Tie number 2 gets made at the end. So first we're going to make all the flowers and then we're going to put on tie number 2. Joya, thank you for picking up a pattern. Hello, Lori. Lori, member for 38 months. Thank you, Lori, with a membership milestone. Just got here and oh my God, this is so cute. Thanks, Lori. The pattern is up in our shop, so please feel free to grab it. It is on sale along with everything else this weekend and today. Here we go. We are going to begin by working back first across the top half of the foundation chain row. We're going to hop over and then work all the way back on the other side. So here we go. We are going to skip the first chain from the hook. We're going to slip stitch into the second chain. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to skip this chain into the next chain. We are going, so this is the next chain, and we're going to use the BLO, the back loop only. That is the loop furthest away from you. Remember, there are 2 loops that pass over top of your little button or your bead there. We are going to actually, we're going to slip stitch into this next chain. So pardon me. We're going to chain 1, skip 1. Wait a minute. I'm getting all ahead of myself here. Slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. You'll have 1 more chain and then the chain that sits around your bead. So you can slip stitch. You're going to chain 1 and skip this particular chain. You're going to be working into the BLO loop, the loop that's furthest from you, on the bead now. So chain 1, skip the next chain, and work into the loop that's on the actual bead. Thank you, Mary Lou, for picking up a pattern. we are going to slip stitch into that loop. So just to catch up, skip the first chain from the hook, slip stitch into the second chain. Chain 1, skip that next chain and into the loop that is the loop around the bead, the furthest one away from you, the BLO, back loop only, you're going to slip stitch. I find it helpful to kind of hold on to the bead and sort of pinch my work between my thumb and forefinger. We are going to make 3 petals now, all built around this one little loop. So we're not leaving our special bead chain yet. We are using only this loop. We slip stitched into it, and here we go. We're going to build 3 petals. We're going to chain 3, and we're going to treble crochet. Now, you can use the extended double crochet stitch here if you don't want to use the treble crochet. I know sometimes it's sometimes okay to use that in lieu of the treble crochet. It's not always, but in this pattern you can. I'm going to treble crochet, so that's 2 wraps around my hook, but you can do the extended double crochet if you'd rather. So chain 3 and then treble crochet or extended double crochet, whatever your fancy. Again, only using that one loop, chain 3 more, and slip stitch into that loop. That creates one little petal, and we're going to do that twice more all around that same loop. So we chain 3, treble crochet or extended double crochet, whichever you like. Chain 3 and slip stitch again all around that same little loop. So that's 2 petals made. We've got 1 more to go. Chain 3, treble crochet or extended double crochet into that loop. This is all into that back loop only, the loop that's on around your bead. Chain 3 and slip stitch back into that loop. Now, stuff is going to shift on you. That loop is going to get big. Your bead is going to move around. Don't worry, it's okay. At the end of every 3rd petal, just take a moment to kind of pause, pull the petal. That's the little tiny tail end here. Yoink, yoink, yoink. And then you can push your bead back up into the middle, and you will still have this other loop right here running out the other side of your bead. Now the bead might move around. Don't panic if you think, oh my gosh, the loop's on the wrong side. It's just because your bead has moved. So your bead will want to shift a little bit. It's okay. What you want to make sure you're doing is only working those 3 petals onto one of those loops, because you need the other loop for doing the other 2 petals on the way back. So there you go. Just keep that in mind as you go. You'll always have, for pass number 1, you'll always have another loop still left outside of your button or your bead. And you'll have, of course, the main loop running through your bead. And on pass number 1, 3 petals are made for each bead, and they're made on one of those 2 loops only. And use the loop furthest away from you. Okay. We are back to our foundation chain. We've got 5 chains before we get to our next bead. So into the next chain, immediately next to the chain that your bead was on, you're going to slip stitch. Chain 3, skip 3 chains, bunk, 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 skip them, find the chain immediately before your next chain around the bead, and slip stitch into that. So chain 3, skip 3, slip stitch into the next chain. And I'm just going to pause again and show you where we're at. So there's 3 little petals around 1/2 of your bead so far. We've done half of 1 flower. Slip stitch into the next chain, chain 3, skip 3, slip stitch into the next chain, and then we're going to choose BLO, back loop only, so the loop that's furthest away from you. It's the one around your bead. You're going to slip stitch into or around that one little loop, and just get your hook under it. The first little bit is probably the most difficult, and then it kind of opens up a little bit. Slip stitch around that loop, Now you've got a little bit of space to move. I like to hold on to things so that it doesn't get, excuse me, it doesn't get too like big and holy. And now we're going to build 3 petals again, all around that same loop. So here we go. Petal begins with chain 3. We treble crochet or extended double into that loop. Chain 3 and slip stitch back into the loop, and that makes a little petal. So the petals pattern never changes. Chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, slip stitch. Chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, slip stitch. We get this cute little rounded petal when we do that. So here we go. Chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, and slip stitch all into the same loop. That's 2 little petals made, and 1 more. So remember, each bead gets 3 petals on first pass, and then we hop over, we do the other half of the foundation row, and we only do 2 petals on the second pass. But 3 petals right now per bead. Chain 3, treble crochet or extended double crochet, chain 3, and slip stitch. So there's my 3 petals. Your bead is going to move around. Don't worry about it. You are still going to wind up with 1 part of the chain, 1 last loop on the outside of your bead. 1 loop passes through your bead, and then you've got 3 petals sitting on the other loop that was around your bead. Quick sip of my coffee. Teresa, thank you so much for picking up a couple of patterns. Goodness me, that was 2 dings. I hope I didn't miss somebody. Let me just double check here. Once you finish a petal or 3 petals, you find the chain immediately next to the chain that your bead was in. Slip stitch into that chain, because remember there's 5 chains between beads. Chain 3, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, find the chain immediately before the next chain around a bead, slip stitch into that, and then we start all over again. Slip stitch into the back loop only of the chain around your bead and build 3 petals. Chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, slip stitch, repeat. Chain 3, treble crochet or extended double, chain 3, slip stitch. That's 1 petal, and then you make 2 more. So you have to have 3 petals per bead going along the first pass. There we go. And that's all built into that 1 loop. Your bead is going to move around. Don't worry, just shove it back into place. That loop will be passing along underneath it. The whole thing is going to want to twist a little bit on you. It's okay. Just pause every once in a while and pull it out. You've got, if you give it a nice little bit of a stretch, you'll have 3 halves of 3 flowers now so far, and little chain 3s in between. Everybody can see that, I hope. I think I missed Catherine Jones. Kathy, thank you so much for picking up some patterns. I don't know why I didn't see that. I would like to take a moment and just thank everybody who's popped into the shop so far. I'm not sure if the ding ding is working constantly, but we've got Joanne, Tina again, Marie, Alfreda, Jessica, Kathy, Louise, Joya, Mary Lou, and Teresa. Thank you so much for picking up a couple of patterns or picking up today's pattern in the shop. We really appreciate it. Here we go. We've got 3 halves of 3 flowers made so far. Because I've got 9 beads, I've got 6 more to go. If you're making it for kids, you'll have 8 beads, so you'll have 5 more to go. And if you're making the large version and you're using 10 beads, you'll have 7 more to go. Catherine mentions UK patterns are written different. Yes, there's different terminology. UK and US terminology is a little bit different. We have a translator on our website. Karen, thank you for picking up a pattern. Over on the tools page of our website, we've got a quick little UK to US translation guide for the super basic stitches, and that will help if you are using a US based pattern and you're more familiar with UK terminology. You can just sort of make little notations on your pattern as you go. Same thing if you're more comfortable with US terminology and you are looking at a UK pattern. That will help you just make some quick notes on your pattern as you go. It'll just kind of help refresh you. We're Canadian, and because of the way I was sort of, because I am self-taught and because of the books available to me at the time when I was learning to crochet, literally half of them were in UK terminology and the other half is in US terminology. So I'm comfortable with both, but I do have to remind myself when I sit down which one I'm doing. However, I write and use all US terminology in all of our patterns and tutorials because ultimately that's what I became more familiar with. So just in case you're wondering. Okay, here we go. After your last petal, you want to slip stitch into the very next chain next to the one around a bead. So there's 5 chains in between beads, chain 3, skip 3 chains, slip stitch into the chain right before the next chain around a bead, and then we start all over again. Using that back loop only, so I'm kind of pull my little bead out of the way, I expose the whole chain, I grab the back loop only, and I create 3 petals. Slip stitch, chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, and slip stitch, all into that same loop. I'm not using both loops, just the one loop. So Catherine asked an interesting question about why would you call it a double if there's no double? So the whole point of crochet is that crochet is French for hook. I'm sure most of you know that. Deanna, happy birthday. Thank you for picking up a pattern. The idea is that when you are yarning over or picking up a loop, so if we go and pick up a loop and then yarn over and crochet, we think of that as like a single crochet in the US, but in the UK, you've actually hooked once and now you're hooking twice. And that's why a single is called a double. So they think of it as 2 hooks. You have to hook the yarn to create a loop on your hook and then hook again to finish the single crochet. But in US terminology, we just go, well, I only have 2 loops on my hook, so then I only hook through 2 loops. So that's the differentiation, and that's really, that explains all of it. Hello, Butterfly. Butterfly, our resident UK. Thank you so much for the generous super chat. I'm from the UK.
Might I add, in British pounds.
Yes, British pounds. Thank you. I'm from the UK, says Butterfly. What was that, sweetie?
Good timing.
Good timing. Yeah, I'm from the UK, but I learned using USA. I can now use both terms. See? It's great. It's great to be duolingual. Thank you, Barbara, for picking up a pattern. The bucket hat pattern or the tutorial is a quick question from Ms. Wildstraw. I like that name. We've got the tutorial. We'll make sure Mr. Stitches can quickly link that in the live chat if he grabs it. And the pattern is in our Etsy shop. It is right up top in the featured items. So if you pop over to the shop, you should see it right up top there. So how many have I done? I've done 2. I need to do 1 more little petal on this bead. Chain 3, treble crochet, crochet, chain 3, slip stitch. There we go. So that's 3 petals around my little bead. If your bead moves, it's okay. Just plunk it back into place for a moment, but your whole thing is going to twist on you. Don't worry. It will all be untwisted when you're done. Just sort of focus on going forward for now. You've got 5 chains in between your beads. The one right next to your bead where you were doing all the work might get a bit tight or squished, so don't miss it. Make sure you get your hook in there. And you slip stitch into that chain, chain 3, skip 3, and then slip stitch into the chain just before the next bead and continue. We are using back loop only of that chain stitch around the bead, slip stitch in it to begin, chain 3, treble crochet or extended double, perfectly fine, chain 3, and slip stitch. That is a petal. You want to do 3 in each of those bead loops. Christine, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. Hello, Deanna. Deanna is feeling very excited on her birthday. Claire, thank you for picking up a couple of patterns. Deanna, with a very friendly super chat. Thank you so much, Deanna. Says, who else is looking forward to Friday's video? Oh, yeah. This Friday, it's April, so we are going to have the 4th pattern in our Granny's Magical Cupboard Granny Square series, our calendar blanket for this year. That comes out this Friday. Gosh, can you believe it? I feel like the first Friday of the month rolls around awfully quickly. Whenever I finish a petal, I like to kind of press it to the side and maybe kind of hold it out of the way, just so it's not kind of interrupting my crochet. Sherry, thank you so much for picking up some patterns. You've got 3 petals. You can just plunk your bead back into place. Remember, you'll still have one external loop running around that bead. You'll be using that on the way back. Find the chain immediately after. Make sure that you don't miss it, because sometimes it'll get squished and look tiny. Chain 3. Skip 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. The next chain is the one before the chain around the bead. Slip stitch into that. And then back loop only slip stitch into the next chain, which is the bead. Lenore, thank you so much for picking up a couple of patterns. And we build 3 more petals.
Do we have videos showing how to read patterns? I feel like we've done a few.
Yes.
But I don't remember the titles.
We have several live streams on how to read a pattern. We have a video on how to read a pattern where we did one of our free patterns from the website, and we just basically crocheted along with it to kind of show everybody how to read a pattern. We've done it several times, so how to read a pattern, it's mostly in the lives, I think, section. Find the next chain once you're finished with your 3 petals and slip stitch into it. Chain 3. Skip 3 chains. Now you're finding the next chain, which will be just before the next beaded chain. Slip stitch into that. So you're kind of creating a little anchor. So slip stitch, chain 3, skip 3, slip stitch. That's in between your petals or your flowers, and that just gives our headband a little bit more kind of width without it being thick in between our flowers. And don't worry, your headband is going to twist on you, and you might think, oh no, I'm doing it wrong. No, you're not. Just take a moment, unwind the whole thing until you realize that it's all sitting facing upright. And if your beads are kind of falling out of place, you can just slide them back in. Don't worry about that either. It's going to want to turn a little bit. Isn't this cute? Oh my gosh. It's going to want to curve a little bit because we are doing all this work on one side, but then we're going to turn around and come back on the other side. I feel like that too, Tammy. I feel like this year just got going, and here we are in April. All right. Next, back loop only slip stitch into the chain around the bead. Maria, thank you for picking up a couple of patterns. And 3 petals. Chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, and slip stitch. And that is a cute little petal. You've got to do 3 of those per bead. Butterfly again with another super chat. Thank you so much. Butterfly says, can we use this pattern for a newborn baby girl? That is an excellent question. Because this pattern has beads in it, I would not recommend this pattern with the beads for a newborn baby girl. It also ties on, and it ties on around the back of the head. I don't like ties on a newborn because then they're lying on their heads, which are very soft. And there should be nothing around the back of the head. No ties, no knots, nothing like this. I don't recommend headbands for babies at all. I know that sometimes when you see a baby sitting up in a picture, they've got a little headband on them and it's pretty, but I don't think they leave them on that outside of the photography. So if you were going to make one of these for a little baby girl, only if she was seated upright in her car seat and for a quick picture, but then I wouldn't leave it on her because those little heads are too tender and too soft and they cannot lift their heads to make themselves comfortable. They can't turn their heads to get away from a tie or a knot running along the back. So for photographic reasons only, and it's not to be left on them for very long because they can't lift their heads off of the knot. So that is not a wearable for a baby. Okay for a photo, but past that, no. These are only okay for children who can now lift their own heads, are comfortable wearing a little headband. I would say like your toddler, like 2 and up. Even toddlers, they may not have time for your hairband. 2-year-olds have a lot of definite tastes and decisions. But 3, 4, 5, I think at age 3, especially age 4, girls start to like, to wear pretty little things. They'll put up with wearing something in their hair that maybe like, ties on. So that's my suggestion for that. Great question. Three petals per flower or bead. Find this chain right next to it and slip stitch. It might be small, so don't miss it. Chain 3. Skip 3 chains, slip stitch into the next chain, and then slip stitch into the back loop only of the chain around the bead and start the petals again. 3 petals. I'm almost done past number 1 here. You're welcome, butterfly. Okay, that was my last bead. So that's my 3rd petal. I am now confronted with the 3 chains between the tie and my bead. So I want to slip stitch into the chain right next to the bead. So I don't want to miss that. I want to chain 1, skip 1, and then slip stitch into the next chain and kind of grab the top of the tie at the same time. So I want to kind of just slip stitch into both of those things. So there we go. We have completed pass number 1. So I'm just going to lay this out for you. It'll twist, don't worry, just untwist it. And all of your little flowers will be, so you've got however many beads you are using, 8, 9, or 10. You've got 3 petals per each bead. You've got little chain 3s anchored by slip stitches in between your petals. It's going to want to curl up on you, which is perfectly okay. This is really cute. And we are back at tie number 1. So remember I said there's no sewing or anything. We are now going to flip the entire headband so that we are looking at the other side of our foundation chain row. So all of our petals that we just made are now on our side of the foundation chain row. We are going to hop across. So if you look at your work, here's your tie. You've got 3 chains before you get to the chain loop that is around your bead. you're going to just hop over top of the tie and slip stitch into the bottom of the chain that you are in currently. So that's all. You're just hopping over, slip stitching into the other side of the stitch that you're currently in. Chain 1, skip a chain. You're going to slip stitch into the chain immediately before the loop that passes over your next bead or your first flower. So just a small little gathering there of stitches. And then here we go. As we work across the underside of our foundation row, you might find that your beads have moved. It's sitting outside of your flower. So rather than going, oh my gosh, I screwed up, go, no, no, no. Just put it back. You'll still have a loop passing over top of your bead. So whether it moves or it's gone the other way, don't worry, just put it back. You'll still have a loop. That's the loop now that we're going to build 2 petals into. So 3 petals on the way one direction, 2 petals per bead on the way back. And the petals are still built the same way. Judith, thank you for picking up a pattern. Slip stitch into that loop. Chain 3, treble crochet. You can use an extended double crochet too, that's fine. Chain 3, and slip stitch. And you're doing it all in the other loop now. And this time there's only 2 petals per flower to worry about. So chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, and slip stitch. And all of that is built into the other loop running over top of your bead. So now a complete flower is 5 petals. Let me just get myself some slack here. Things want to turn and spin around you on a little bit. So after you finish your second petal on the way back, just pause, unravel everything, make sure it's not spinning. And you're looking at the bottom of your foundation chain row. You are slip stitching into the chain right next to the chain that was around your bead. Thank you very much, Lori, for picking up a pattern. Chain 3, skip 3, just like the other side. Find the chain just before the loop around your bead and slip stitch into it. So you're still doing the same thing. You can slip stitch into the top of that chain or get both loops around you, whatever is comfortable. I'm just going to try and get a piece of that chain. So it's still slip stitch, chain 3, skip 3, slip stitch in between your flowers. You still are looking for the loop now. There's only 1 loop left outside of your bead. You're going to slip stitch into that loop. And now you're only making 2 petals because a cherry blossom has 5 petals. So 3 on one side, 2 on the other. But the petal pattern hasn't changed. Chain 3, treble crochet, chain 3, and slip stitch. There we go. Once you finish your second petal, you're looking for the chain right after the chain from your bead or the chain around your bead. Just get your hook in there and slip stitch. Chain 3, skip 3, and slip stitch into the chain just before the chain loop that runs over your bead. And then slip stitch into the chain loop that runs over your bead. This is the second of those 2 chain loops. Slip stitch into that one and make 2 petals. Quick recap, it's size 4, medium weight, 100% cotton yarn that I'm using. It's 24/7 cotton by Lion Brand. A G6 hook, and that can be 4mm, 4.25mm, or 4.5mm, whichever one you've got. They all work just fine. And I'm probably using about 60 yards of yarn, maybe a little less. That's what I would budget for if you're doing a little stash diving. Crocus's daughter ordered a rainbow headband. Love it. You could change, all the beads could be different colors. I love that. Slip stitch into the chain immediately next to the bead. Chain 3. Skip 3 chains. Slip stitch into the chain immediately next to the other bead. and slip stitch into the chain loop of the bead, and 2 more petals. I think I might have just enough yarn here. I am playing a little bit of yarn chicken today. I had leftover pink from making the bucket hat on Friday, and I just love this pink so much. It looks like bubble gum. So I had to make myself a cherry blossom hairband, and I thought, oh, I think I have just enough to demonstrate today during the live stream. So we'll see. We'll see how accurate I am. But I know I used about, I don't know, between 50 and 60 yards for this. So if you're making it for a child, you're going to need just a smidgen less. So that is, how many petals have I done? 1 petal. I've got 1 petal. I got to do 1 more. 2 petals per bead on the way back. There we go. Take a moment, make sure you are not going to twist your work. Find the chain immediately next to the chain that you just used, the one around your bead, chain 3. Skip 3 chains, slip stitch into the chain just before the chain around your bead. Slip stitch into that loop around your bead, and then make 2 petals. And again, you can use the extended double crochet instead of a treble crochet here. That is perfectly okay. Some people are more comfortable with that. I totally get it. We are happy to have you all here on Easter Monday. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Happy birthday to all the April babies. It's Deanna's birthday today. We are very happy to have you all here. It is actually sunny outside for us today, so that is a delight. Slip stitch into the next chain, chain 3. Skip 3 chains, slip stitch into the next chain. Make sure nothing's spinning on me here. There it is. Oops. Nope, I want this one. There we go. Oh my, Valerie, thank you so much for picking up a few patterns. If you get to a flower and your bead's on the outside, just roll it backwards. Everything kind of spins a little bit, so don't worry. Just sort of squish it back into the middle of your flower, and that will expose that other loop again. It's right there. It was waiting for you. It's just that the bead is shuffling around. Just put the bead back in place, and that loop will reappear. 2 petals around it. Jane, thank you so much for picking up a couple of patterns. Thank you, ladies. I like this pattern because it's flowers and because it's all made in one go. There's no sewing, there's no attaching things. It's just all made in one shot. Kind of fun. Slip stitch into the next chain, chain 3, and skip 3, slip stitch into the next chain. I've got 3 more little beads to go. Once again, there's my bead. It popped out. That's okay. Just shove it back. And it reveals that bottom loop. That's what I'm building my 2 petals around. There we go. Slip stitch into the next chain. Chain 3. Skip 3. Slip stitch into the next chain. And then if your bead is out, poke it back into place. That exposes your little loop, slip stitch in there, and 2 more petals. Yeah, Heidi, I like that idea. You could use embroidery floss or crochet thread and a much smaller hook and do this maybe without the ties or shorter ties for bracelet, for a necklace, a bookmark. I love that idea. That would be so pretty. See, look how creative this group is. This is another reason I love hanging out with you guys. So many great ideas just sort of pop up. Slip stitching into the next chain, chain 3, skip 3, slip stitch into the next chain, and I've got one more flower left, so I'm slip stitching into that remaining loop around the bead, 2 more petals, there we go. Okay, so I am now at the end of all my flowers. I'm not going to worry about the twisting or anything yet, but you can always just grab your tie at the other end and kind of pull gently on it, and it will help kind of show you if it's twisting. You can flatten out your little petals a little later. When you get to the end, there's this little itty bitty baby of a nub. We can chain 1, skip 1 right from where we are and just slip stitch into the end loop. That is just sort of the beginning of the flower pattern. So you've got a little bit of a kind of a chain 1, skip 1, slip stitch thing happening between the end of your tie and your first flower here. This is just to give us a little bit of a buffer, plus a place to sort of weave in that tail. And you're just doing the same thing out the other end. So it's really, it doesn't matter what you cram in here, a chain, where you put the chain, a chain 1, a skip 1. You want to just make sure though that when you are finished, after you finish your last 2 petals and you slip stitch, you want to chain 1, skip 1, or chain and just slip stitch into the tail end, the very edge loop of the little nub we created when we turned around and came back after the end of our foundation chain row. So as long as your last flower has its 5 petals and there's this itty bitty little nub out the end, then that's just fine. So don't stress stitch counts or anything in between your ties and your flowers, not important. We're going to chain now 51 for tie number 2. If you made a different number of chains for tie number 1 because you were making it longer or shorter, remember to make the same number of chains for tie number 2 because you want them both to be identical. All right, that's 51 chains for me. This is how much yarn I have left. Let's see if I can do it. For the tie, after you chain 51 or your desired number, skip the first chain from the hook, slip stitch into the next chain, and slip stitch in each chain all the way back to the beginning of that chain of 51, or basically the little nub that you left from at the end of your flowers. I think I can do it. I think I might have enough here to finish. Oh, I love it. Let's see the poll. What project are you working on? Blankets, 46%. Clothing, 24%. Other, leave a comment in the chat. Love it. 17%. Toys, 11%. Nice. It's April. I would say, like, you know, other than the little motif driven calendar blanket that we're doing, I think I'm done with blankets until maybe like August, September again. It gets far too hot here for me to really get super excited about making a full-size blanket. And I feel like when I really do get into a blanket project, I like to have it on my lap as I work, and that's kind of part of the cozy enjoyment of crocheting a blanket. So I think I will put the blanket projects aside for a few months as the warm weather rolls in. I am all about the cotton, the wearables, the small projects, maybe some more doily and lace action. I have to make myself a pair of curtains for the kitchen window. I was planning on just sort of putting them together. Would anybody be interested in me making a kitchen window curtain tutorial for what I'm making? Otherwise, I was just going to kind of make them and sort of vlog a little bit about them, but I don't know. Do people want curtains in their kitchen windows these days, or am I the only kind of like living in the past cottagecore person here? I'm almost back. Don't worry if some of your chains are bigger or smaller than others. What you're going to do is just sort of tug on your entire tie and just sort of like run your thumb and forefinger over it. And that kind of helps to smooth out any chains that might be a little bit out of size. When you get all the way back to the beginning, just slip stitch back into the end of that little nub and you can fasten off. I did it! Look, guys! I had about 60 centimeters of yarn left. Woohoo! Fasten off, and then take a moment to weave in those two tiny itty bitty little tails. They'll both be right at the top of a tie. Here's one here, and here's the other there. I'm just going to weave them in underneath the stitches around my flowers. Janet says, yes, please, curtains. Yes, please, curtains from Cherry. Hey, Cherry. Joyce is interested in curtains. So is Silver. Vicky. Jessica Rabbit wants to make some lace curtains. Debbie would love alert. Okay, so curtains it is. All right, my darlings, I will definitely record a full tutorial on those curtains I want to make. I'm picturing something super romantic in my little kitchen window. So that's the plan. We'll see what I'm able to make. I'm kind of envisioning it in my head. Hello, hello, everybody. I was just popping in. We are making, oh dear, I'm trying to keep the yarn in my hook here, or my needle. Just weaving in the tails on my little cherry blossom headband. I designed this over the weekend, so the pattern is up in the shop and brand new. The shop is I'm really having trouble weaving this in. The shop's having its anniversary sale, our Etsy shop, so everything's 20% off all this weekend and all today as well. We go for the whole long weekend. There we go. I'm going to keep weaving that in. So thank you so much to everybody who's popped in and picked up a pattern. We really appreciate it. It helps us a lot here. And that also includes today's pattern and also the bucket hat from Friday, which looks like it's pretty popular. I mean, it's a hat, you know. I feel like hats are usually pretty popular. I love hats. But it is a pretty happy colored hat. It's a great scrap buster. If you like using cotton, especially this 24/7 cotton, it is just so soft and smooth and easy to use. And you use it for other projects like me, then it's a great, you end up with little bits left over, i.e. this. That bucket hat is a really fun one to use up your scraps on because it's so cute. It looks good in a bunch of different colors. It's a scrappy little thing. Hello, Joanna. Joanna with a membership milestone. Joanna's been a member for 26 months. Thank you, Joanna. She says, hi, Jada. I would love a tutorial on a lacy kitchen curtain. Thank you for all you do. Well, then, we shall do it. Thank you. All right, that is tie end number 1. I've got my other little end. I'm going to weave that one in here on the other side. Make sure that knot's nice and tight. Nothing like a new headband. I might give one of these away to one of my girlfriends since I've got 2. I think I like the red beads in the center a little more than the purple beads. I don't know. I like them both. The red beads look a little bit more like a cherry blossom to me. There we go. Okay, so once you've woven in your 2 little ends, I like to flip the whole thing on its back so the right side is facing up. So here's what the finished one looks like. Take a moment to yank on your ties. This kind of gives them the stretch they need, plus it smooths out any little, like, you know, loop issues if your slip stitches had some funny loops to them. And then I just like to take my time and go through each little flower and just sort of press out the little petals. The flowers should want to kind of overlap each other a little bit, which I think is also kind of cute and makes it look like a cherry blossom. A branch of cherry blossoms are all a bunch of blossoms all kind of like sitting on top of each other. And I was really trying to capture that in this pattern. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Ronald and Kathy. Hello, you two, my cousins. Members for 33 months. Thank you so much. Yes, we would love kitchen curtains. Okay, thank you. All right, then I will start working on that. I'm going to be using crochet thread for that particular pattern. At least that's my plan. I'm still kind of working on little samplers. So I will get that going and I will start working on that. We will have that tutorial sometime later on once the weather gets a little bit warmer, because it's going to take me a while to work on it. But I'm glad to know that there's interest in it, because I would like to make a tutorial out of it. I wasn't sure though if kitchen curtains were still kind of a thing, but I mean, they are around my place, or at least they will be. Okay, all right, so there we go. That is our little cherry blossom hairband. A couple of quick notes before I take some questions on the project. I mentioned this the last time, I think, but every so often we revise patterns. And if we revise the pattern, we keep it up in the same listing. So if you've bought a pattern from us before, and you find out, or you ask and you find out that there's another revision or revision to the pattern, you can always go in and re-download the file from your receipt in your Etsy account. So you don't actually have to use the email. You just log into your Etsy account. You click on you go to your purchases, and under your purchases, all of your receipts will be there. Make sure you're not using the app, because you can't download anything using the app. And if you are not fully signed out of the app, if you're using your phone or tablet, the software will just push you back into the app, which is confusing and annoying. So make sure you're signed out of the app if you're on a phone or tablet. But if you're logged into your Etsy shop using your internet browser, go to you, click on purchases. You'll see all your receipts there. You just scroll through your receipts. They never disappear. And you can go to whichever receipt has any digital file. So that goes for us or any shop on Etsy that sells digital files. You can re-download your file there. So you can download the file again to another device if maybe you've changed phones. You can download it to your computer if you can't find the file. You downloaded it, but you have no idea where it went. You can download it again. And if there's been any kind of revision to the pattern, you can download the most up-to-date version of that pattern. It will always be attached to your receipt. And that is definitely for our shop. I don't know how other shops treat that, but that's how we do it. So if we revise a pattern, we keep it on the same listing and it will be associated with your receipt. You can always download the most up-to-date version of that pattern. So there you go. A couple people were wondering about that, and I did mention it, but I wanted to mention it again. Hello, Summer. Summer's been a member for 59 months. Thank you, Summer. Summer says, hey guys, I've been lurking. How is your SDV 1.6 farm coming? Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Yes, loving the update for Stardew Valley. I started a new farm last week. Jessica Rabbit, I know you're here. When did I tell you I started my new farm? I think it was last week. I don't know. All the days are running together. I was a little bit late to the party. I had such a busy week. I didn't quite get to the download and the update. But I started a new farm. I think I'm in spring year 2 now. I think I just got into it. I'm also playing it on my tablet, so I have 2 completely different farms going at the moment. But I think on the new farm from Steam, with the actual updated version of the game, I think I'm in year 2 with the spring. I just finished year 1's winter, so that's where I am. I'm loving it. I love the update. I'm loving all the little delightful things he's put in there with the update, and I'm not going to say what they are. I'm tried very hard not to watch anybody's videos because I don't like spoilers. I just kind of like being delighted as I go. So I've just been enjoying it so much. I love that game. It's definitely like one of my top ever games. I'll probably be playing it until the day I die. Oh my gosh. All right. So anybody have any questions on our little headband?
There was a question from...
Did one ball make both headbands or was it a part ball, says Catherine. I had leftover from one skein that I was using in my bucket hat tutorial on Friday, and I made both these headbands out of what was left of that skein. So I'm saying you need about 60 yards per hairband, but I think you probably need a little bit less than that. That's how much I have left, but that wasn't even a full skein when I started. So you'll definitely get a couple of headbands out of one, possibly even 3. Hello, Crocus. Crocus with a super chat. Thank you. Says, I love your creativity, Jada. Thank you, Crocus. Thank you so much.
We have earlier there was a question from Louise if we have a light spring or summer weight top or shrug.
A lightweight summer weight top or shrug. We do have a lightweight, well, it's a cotton light pattern, so it's kind of using the V-stitch. It's our peekaboo sleeve top. You can wear it like a crop top or you can make it a little longer. That is a nice summery top. It looks cute over a tank top. We also have a beachy cover-up or an overdress, which is much longer. It's got like a fun tassel, like a loopy tasseled sleeves and around the bottom, kind of like a flapper dress, if you know what the flappers from the 20s dressed like. That is an overdress. That makes a cute beachy cover up, or I like to wear it over top of a dress because it just looks kind of neat. It's an overdress or a beachy cover up. Also made using a nice light stitch and made using cotton. So we've got those 2 patterns. You might want to give those a try. Hello, Sue, Sakura Sue. Do you think I was not thinking of you the entire time I was creating this little, I kept thinking Sakura, Sakura, Sakura Sue. Cherry Blossoms, aka Sakura, my childhood favorite. Absolutely. Beautiful pattern, capturing beauty, symbol of spring and new beginnings in Japan and Korea. Thank you, Sue. Yes, absolutely. The pretty little pink 5-petal flowers. I just love them. So we're still seeing yeses to the curtains. Oh, great. I will definitely start working on that. Any other questions about today's pattern? Lucy says, have you tried Disney Dreamlight Valley? Yes, I actually tried the beta when it was still in beta. I downloaded it. I was playing it on Switch. I haven't played it for a while, but I loved it.
Oh, by the way, I was on their eShop, and they've got a whole new DLC for that game.
Yes, I know. I've too much gaming to catch up with. Joyce says, I washed my bucket hat that I made Friday last night, and the thing just came unraveled where I changed colors and sewed all the ends in. Oh, no! That sounds like you may have, your knots might not have been tight enough, or your tails might not have been long enough. If you weave them in 2 or 3 times, if it's slippery yarn, I always recommend making longer tails to weave them back and forth so that they kind of lock into place. But you can always fix a hole. So you want to stop it from unraveling. If the yarn itself hasn't broken, then you just kind of basically create the stitches back in place. And if you have to stitch or knot them into place because you're fixing like a granny square because it's coming apart from the inside, let's say. I know the granny bucket doesn't do that, but you can just keep working the double crochets. And in the bucket hat style, you shouldn't actually have to worry about trying to attach them if it's come out. Well, if it's come out in the middle. Just you should have enough yarn to fix those areas, and then work as much as you have to in the open space. And if you have like an edge that's complete and another edge that's complete, fill in the whole space as usual, like regular crochet. And if you have to, just tack it with needle and thread against the other side, unless you want to slip stitch in between, but I don't know if you have enough yarn left over for that. But you can always fix things when they come apart, especially if they come apart without breakage. Breakage is a completely different story, but just unraveling, you just sort of have to like basically recrochet those areas and do any tacking you have to kind of keep the whole thing together. I recommend, if you're going to put things in the washing machine, to put them in like a little mesh laundry bag like you would do your delicates in, or just hand wash everything. I hand wash everything I crochet, unless it's an old ancient blanket I don't care about anymore, because like, you know, it's for like covering a, like I'm sitting on it like a cushion, or maybe like I have a pet and the pet wants to hang out on it. Otherwise, I hand wash everything because I just don't trust washing machines. Yeah, just hand wash, Lily. If you spend the time and energy and love in making something, especially something like thread crochet big projects, hand wash.
Do not put it in the washing machine.
Do not trust a machine.
Just dip it in. We have a video on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see if I can find it.
Yeah, washing and blocking, I think.
Is it washing and blocking where we do the gentle...
Joyce threw it away. Well, you could always have unraveled it and used it as scraps, but definitely make another one. Audrey says, I think this pattern can be converted to a headscarf. A headscarf. Could this pattern be converted to a headscarf? How big a headscarf? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I would go about doing that. I like that idea, Audrey. I'm just not sure how I would do that. Oh, Sherry asked, how many grams does the finished headband weigh? Oh, golly. I don't know. It's not heavy. I'm not even sure what I would compare that to. I don't have a scale.
We don't have a digital scale that would measure
but I'm
that.
not sure. I'm not sure.
A feather?
It's heavier than a feather.
A handful of feathers.
It's very light. It's not a heavy headband at all. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would compare it to though.
Weighs less than a cup of coffee.
Much less than
An
a
empty cup of coffee.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm a pyramid of flowers. I like that, Charlie. Yeah. I think if I were to turn it into a headscarf, I'm not sure because working back across the other way, we have a mile a minute flower pattern that might, if you made it wider, it's the triangular part I'm not sure about. I'll have to give that some thought. I like that idea.
Can you do a video on how to mend or finish crocheted afghans?
Yes, we've been asked to do that several times. I will try and make a video about first how to fix a
you
granny
make
square.
the blanket, I'll destroy it,
Yeah.
and then you fix it on video.
Yeah, I think I have it on the list of things to do. I definitely want to
I'll
get
give
to
it
that.
to the squirrels for a few days.
Regina, we've got our mile a minute flower pattern. Check out, it's the August flower pattern from our Mighty Mile a Minute calendar blanket. It's the flower stitch. So you could make it in long strips. I think you can also just expand it to make regular flowers, but I found it easier to make flower upon flower upon flower. Now you don't have to do the shell stitch border. You could just make strips of the flowers and then join them together if you wanted to, without the shell stitch in between. And I feel like that would probably be the easiest, fastest way to make a flower stitch blanket, like a big flower. And Claire mentioned, yeah, the triangle kerchief. Yeah, I'm not sure how I would do this in a triangular fashion. I will have to give that some thought. Certainly this would make a cute, like, little border around a regular triangle. I like that idea too. I'll have to give that some thought. Yeah, like a kerchief. All right, everybody. If you have any questions outside of the live, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, or you can pop into the Etsy shop and ask us there. Thank you so much for joining us on Easter Monday. I hope you guys all had a wonderful long weekend, and if you still have a day off, then I hope you enjoy the rest of it. It is always a nice time of year to have a few days off. It's sunny out there, so I'm happy with that. We will see you Friday for our April Granny's Magical Cupboard Granny Square pattern. So it's the fourth version, the fourth pattern for this year's calendar blanket. Looking forward to that. And all this week we will be sharing photos of your Jacob's Ladder granny squares. That is the March square we did. A lot of you have sent photos in. They're all gorgeous. Thank you so much for the photos. So we're going to be sharing those this week. So if you're looking for a little of inspiration or you want a little bit of a catch up or something, that's coming this week. So look forward to that. We'll be sharing everybody's photos. And Yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Mr. InStitches, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I think you've covered it all. Just a last reminder that today's the last day of our anniversary sale in the Etsy shop. That ends tonight at midnight. We do have the next, you already mentioned the next video is going to be the April square.
Yep.
I'm just trying to think of the questions that came through. You got most of them.
Very Queen, if Colt would like a bracelet, we've got a fun beaded bracelet crochet, very fast tutorial that you might want to try. He could wear one. They're really cute and cool. I like them. It's the beaded bracelet tutorial. Give that a go. That's a nice light summery weather pattern and tutorial, and it's super quick, and it uses like really fun beads too. So give that one a look. Colt might like that. You can make it in his favorite colors. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your support, for helping us out here, for becoming members, for being subscribers, for picking up patterns in our Etsy shop. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful week. We will see you Friday. Take care, everybody, and enjoy the spring.
Bye.
Bye, guys.